This is a response to a series of videos by NathanLPaylor entitled The Beauty. Nathan is a Christian with a doctorate in Reformed theological thinking who lives locally to me. I found Nathan's video series to be interesting, and he has said he is open to a response from myself, an atheist and secular humanist. I should stress to any of my subscribers this is not pwnage. If that's what you're hoping to see, sorry, this video most likely won't be of interest to you. Rather, here I'm attempting to establish some interesting and civilized dialogue. Let's begin. Nathan, a theme that seems prominent in your series is that of indulging the non-believer's perspective before delivering your rebuttal to it. Case in point, in parts 1 and 2 of your series, you make the comparison of the Abrahamic God to Santa Claus. This is an interesting comparison in my opinion when coming from a Christian. The reason I might make such a comparison is because I don't believe either exist. My reasons for not believing that either exist are pretty similar. Both possess properties that are at variance with science. Both offer rewards based on both obedience and willingness to believe without evidence. Your rebuttal. Interestingly here you quote Matthew 18:3, and he said, "Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." Your interpretation is that in order to believe in the Abrahamic God, we must be open to believing in that which is magical or fairy tale-esque, just as children are. The problem I have with this is that if we were to adopt such a mindset, what else might we let in? Whilst we are in the fairyland mindset, might we start believing in Santa Claus again? Is it possible the claims of other gods from other religions might take up residence as plausible in our heads? I can't help but feel that this argument is something of an own goal, in that it makes the admission that belief in the Abrahamic God requires one to ignore reason. Sub-question I have here. What is your view of the afterlife? I hear much talk of a new earth from modern Christians as opposed to heaven in the sky concept of the more classical Christianity. What do you believe is the fate of non-believers? I understand you are not a fundamentalist, so probably don't believe in a literal lake of fire. I would be interested to know what you believe. Moving on to parts 3, 4 and 5. You seem here to be addressing the problem of evil. Essentially, that if the Abrahamic God exists and is an omnibenevolent, omniscient, omnipotent and omnipresent God, then why does he allow evil and suffering in the world? I should note here that I appreciate that you address the atheist perspective quite fairly. You don't try to twist it into anything that it isn't, and as such you seem genuinely interested in addressing the argument rather than misrepresenting it for your own personal agenda. The straw man is a common tactic employed by theists, and I appreciate that you've not stooped to that level, and find your video quite refreshing for this reason. Your rebuttal to the problem of evil. Unfortunately, I find it a bit ordinary. It's very impassioned, but as far as I can ascertain, it is the assertion that Jesus sacrificed himself in order to tackle the problem of evil. The problem with assertions is that anyone can make them, about anything. It's claims that provide evidence for themselves that we find credible. The problem with this particular assertion is that it seems like a rather bizarre way for an omnipotent deity to tackle a problem, and that's overlooking the problem of why such a deity would design a universe in such a flawed way. It's commonplace for Christians to point out that our world is flawed because of man, not the Abrahamic God. But if said God made man, then ultimately said God is responsible for the actions of man, especially if, in addition to being omnipotent, he is also omniscient, ergo fully knowledgeable of what his children would do. I'd be interested to know why you believe that the Abrahamic God chose such a method as the crucifixion and resurrection of himself in order to solve the problem of evil. Let's not forget, the Abrahamic God is asserted to be omnipotent. There are no methods that are unavailable to him. Phrases such as God can't, God couldn't, God wants, God needs, etc. are self-refuting if one is referring to an omnipotent God. I hope this has been of interest to you. Let me know what you think.